Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 18, Dragon's Lair. Liam paused at the junction where the brook joined a huge turbulent river and then started walking in the northeastern direction towards a cluster of mountains. He climbed the winding pathways and then paused at a particular cave near the base of one of the taller mountains. Surprisingly, there was also another cave besides the first cave. He stopped and stared at both the caves, his lips curling into a big smile. "I am glad I found it." Liam chuckled, at the unbelievable sight in front of him. "Now let me see, the cave on the right should be the dungeon entrance, and the cave on the left should be the lair. The person who first uncovers a dungeon entrance received bonus points and additional drops, but Liam was rather interested in the second cave. This cave was in fact the lair of one of the lesser dragons called Nerea. Like all dragons, Nerea also had the fetish of collecting gems and treasures. However, Liam knew that it also had an additional fetish. The lazy dragon loved to lure travelers into its lair by showing off its treasures and eat them when they least expect it. It particularly enjoyed the look of ecstasy and euphoria which appeared on the faces of its prey because of the treasures right before it changed to complete and utter terror on realizing the fate that awaited them. There was also a specific spell inside the cave which made everyone lose everything in their possession if they died inside the cave, thereby slowly growing the treasure mound of the dragon. However, it was only a lesser dragon and it was not too smart. Otherwise, it wouldn't be this close to a starting area. The solution was also an extremely simple one that anyone can try. In his previous life, there was a player who outsmarted the dragon by only taking half the treasures in its lair and escaped before Nerea could lure him all the way to its nest, which was at the back of the cave. The dragon hadn't expected this because it knew all living beings were inherently greedy and it counted on this greed to lure its unsuspecting victims all the way to the back where it laid in wait for them. So after the player escaped with its treasures, the dragon was outraged and it came out of the cave, permanently settling in front of the dungeon to wreak havoc on anyone who passed by. It became the elite monster that players had to tackle before entering the dungeon behind it. However, its lair and the treasures in the lair were never accessible once the event/scenario was triggered. Though this became quite a popular topic of discussion, no one exactly knew the complete details of the treasures inside the lair. Some players had hyped the whole thing, spreading rumors that legendary items were available, but no one bought it considering that this was a beginner area elite. Liam's purpose for coming here, however, was entirely different. Of course, he was interested in the treasures, but he was more interested in the various skill books which were said to be strewn across the cave. Since he was not selecting a class at the moment, skill books were the things Liam needed the most. He was confident enough to be able to pick up some of the sword skills on his own, but when it came to spells and magic, he was a beginner who had to start from scratch just like the others. He, of course, knew about some tips and tricks, but unless and until he achieved a deeper understanding of the various elements and the mana itself, it would be impossible for him to achieve mastery. "Hello again, Nerea." Liam sucked in a huge breath of air and entered the cave on the left. Instantly, he could feel a vague ominous aura in the air, his fully trained and honed senses screaming at him that terrifying danger laid ahead, but Liam behaved as if he was casually strolling. He looked around the cramped and moldy cave walls and cringed at the dusty webs in the corners. He then whistled and walked a bit forward, stopping abruptly at the sight of something glittering and sparkling. "Whoa!" Liam shouted, acting completely surprised. He went over to the nearest pile of what looked like a mound of copper coins and quickly shoved everything inside his inventory. He then turned around and went deeper into the cave, once again acting completely stunned and elated on seeing the second treasure. pile, which was mostly silver coins, but it also had some equipments. Liam quickly tossed everything in his inventory without bothering to inspect it. However, he left behind a few silver coins, moving on to the next pile, which was almost blinding to look at. This was a pile of gold coins. It also contained some old archaic-looking books, and Liam did not have to look at them twice to know that these were the skill books that he was looking for. There were even several of them, and Liam hurriedly pocketed everything, including the gold coins. He raised his head again. His face was now almost livid with happiness and excitement that he was grinning from ear to ear. Up ahead laid a pile of gems dazzling in multiple colors. There were once again equipments, skill books, and Liam even spotted a few scrolls which could only be recipe scrolls. He clapped his hands loudly and then rubbed them together as if he was ready to snatch everything for himself. However, he suddenly turned around. Ah! It looks like I have left behind some silver coins. I should pick them up also. He spoke out aloud and casually walked back to pick up the few silver coins that he had purposefully left behind. And as soon as he reached the small scattered bunch of coins, he tripped and fell, losing his balance, some of the gold coins in his hand, flying to the entrance of the cave. Ah! Damn it! My gold coins! Liam let out a surprised yelp and then chased after them, but as soon as he reached the entrance. Chapter 19, Nerea is angry. Where did he go? Jinwei looked around, standing at the junction of the brook and the river. They had followed Liam all the way up to here when they had suddenly lost track of him. Looking around carefully, Guanya poked him to show the set of footprints leading to the mountain. Boss, over there. Oh! Look up there. Is that a cave? Jinwei gasped. Boss, there is another cave right next to it. Guanya also exclaimed in excitement. Oh shit, boss. This has to be some sort of treasure. Cave or dungeon, right? We have really hit it big. Alright. Alright. Calm down. Have you forgotten how strong that guy is? He might also bring back up. Jinwei rubbed his chin and muttered pensively. We have to be extra careful here. Finding a dungeon right now would be a very big deal. Not to mention the gold on that rich boy. Let's call for backup first. Get all our friends to come here. KKK. Who knows, even a guild tablet or something like that could drop from the dungeon and we can be the first guild in the game. What a fucking lucky day. This rich boy is my lucky star. Ba ha ha ha. While Jinwei stood arrogantly and looked around the area, Guanya quickly got to work and called everybody they knew who was in and around the area. Within a few minutes, a group of players had gathered around the area, with some more still coming in. Inside the mountain, at the back of the winding tunnels of the cave, a blackish green-skinned creature lazily raised its head. Nerea had noticed the weak prey that had wandered into its lair, but it sighed, letting out smoky fumes, seeing that the meat wouldn't be enough to even savor the taste, let alone fill its stomach. Without even opening its eyes, it lazily rested its red spiky head back on the cold cave ground. It knew that the prey was sure to walk right into its mouth, so it made no effort of any kind. It patiently snoozed and waited, absent-mindedly watching Liam through its soul sense. It watched him as he picked up the copper coins. And then it watched him after he picked up the silver coins. It even watched him as he left behind the few silver coins and moved onto the mound of gold, only to come back later for it, stumbling and falling on his face. Hat. What a clumsy little human. Good that stupidity is not contagious. It snorted in arrogance, once again smoke filling the small space. It lazily lifted its one eyelid, its fluorescent slit-like eye half open and half closed, and watched Liam as he ruffled his head and ran out to grab the few coins. Though there were mountains and mountains of treasure inside, the human being had still gone back for a couple of gold and silver coins. Such was the greed of living beings. It harumphed condescendingly. However, the very next second, the enormous terrifying dragon instantly froze. It jerked its head up and flashed its eyes open. Growl. It took a minute, the enormous beast blinked, and it finally understood what just happened. Nerea swung its body around in a haste, lashing its tail in anger, as it saw the human being blast out of the cave and the mountain itself. With immense speed. Roar! It let out a terrifying howl as it speeded outside as well without a second thought. Trickery. The damned human had outsmarted it. Taking only some of its treasures, the stupid and clumsy human being had run away. Nerea trembled in anger, after having been made a fool by a stupid human being. It shot out of the cave following the prey's trail. Determined to chew him out today. Roar! It opened its mouth and sent out another terrifying howl, but this time bright red flames shot out of its mouth, matching the color of its skin and scales. Meanwhile, Liam sucked in a huge breath of air and had started to run as soon as he neared the entrance of the cave. He was not sure if he was going to make it. After all, the beast that was about to chase him was a dragon, even if it was one of the lesser dragons. But he couldn't let this opportunity pass by and mustered every last bit of his strength to run as fast as he could. He shoddily climbed down the winding paths of the mountain, half sliding and half slipping, getting the hell out of the zone. However, as soon as he landed on the flat forest ground, Liam came to a screeching halt. Standing in front of him were about 20 to 30 players, each and every single one of them at least level 2, while behind him up on the hill, a terrifying roar sounded, a blast of fire ripping out of the cave entrance. Chapter 20, Thanks for the help. Are you ready to die, bitch? Jinwei muttered with a grin on his face, happy to see Liam confused. What? What are you looking at? Are you wondering how we all got here? I have been following you all along. Heh. I bet you didn't even know that. He placed his hands on his waist and laughed arrogantly, sneering at the rich boy in front of him. Liam, on the other hand, was busy looking around. He had a frown on his face as he busily ran through the different scenarios in his mind. He had considered several things as he plotted to exploit this small treasure trove, but never did he imagine such an outcome. Tui. Why are you looking around like a monkey who ate ginger? Just die already. Jinwei stepped forward waving his dagger around. After all, we don't have all day to waste on you. We need to explore the dungeon you showed us. KKK. Am I right? That's a dungeon, isn't it? However, as he neared Liam, he noticed something weird. The person in front of him did not look scared shitless as he had hoped. In fact, he did not look scared at all. Instead, he had a big grin on his face. Thanks for the help. Liam muttered. Eh? Have you lost it? Jinwei chuckled and waved his dagger. Behind him, another player had already cast a healing spell on him, as a green mist enveloped him. Jinwei had taken these precautions to make sure that he was not one-shot killed like what happened to the other thief. He dashed forward towards Liam and poked his dagger at him, aiming for his stomach, when suddenly a huge boom resonated from within the cave, high on the mountain. Almost immediately, a gigantic red figure shot out of the cave like a bullet and directly jumped onto the ground with a huge deafening thud. Roar! Nerea raised his spiky dragon head and let out a burst of hot flames on the few players on the right side. Everything happened in a few seconds and no one had expected this nor were ready for this. They were still watching the huge dragon with their mouth wide open when the flames scorched them, taking down a chunk of their health. A few of the players who had gathered even died directly, unable to withstand a single attack from the dragon. Damn it! What the hell is that? Jinwei shouted in shock. He turned around to ask Liam what was happening when he noticed that the person whom he was in the midst of attacking had already disappeared somewhere. Phew, okay. That little bitch set us up. Jinwei roared. Get information. Now. As Neria raised its head and roared again, revving up for the next flame burst, Jinwei and the group of players finally managed to gather their bearings, and a volley of attacks showered on the dragon. However, how could it be so easy to subdue a rare elite monster? Just by lashing out its tail here and there, the dragon created a circle of misery around it, not letting anyone near its body. Its physical defense was also on par with its physical attack power, and every time it opened its mouth, huge damage numbers floated on the group of players. And just like that, the bunch of people who had only gathered to bully a single player and perhaps explore a dungeon, were now fighting a losing battle against a beast akin to a raid boss. Jinwei was livid with rage. In front of him was a very good opportunity, and yet they couldn't grasp it properly thanks to the element of surprise. If they could have at least had 1 minute to prepare themselves, the result would have been much better and they could have even beaten the dragon by now, becoming the first players in the game to achieve such a feat. But now they were just barely holding on, struggling to even remain alive. Fucking slut. If I get my hands on him again. Jinwei screamed as he once again attempted to stab the dragon from the back. Adding to his dismay, other players had also started to filter in, noticing the commotion in this area. Not to mention, the town and the forest were located very close to the novice village, the starting point for several players. Every time the dragon moved, it sent tremors across the ground, attracting everyone's attention. Of course, everyone's attention except for one person, who was busily scaling the mountain from which he had only jumped down a few seconds ago. Liam's hands and legs scurried up the mountain, climbing up as fast as he could. As soon as he saw the group of players in front of him, he had already decided to act. For the dragon was slain, he knew that there was a good chance for him to still grab it all. Chapter 21, Hitting the Motherlode. Liam panted as he reached the cave entrance. Oh. But he didn't care about this right now. Neria was clear, so there was no one guarding the treasures this time around. Jackpot! Liam shouted, licking his lips. Even though he had faced enough in his life, giving but be agitated a bit at the sight of the 3 or 4 remaining mounds inside the cave, all sparkling brightly. He hurriedly dashed forward and shoveled everything inside into his inventory slots. He didn't know when everything was going to disappear, so he didn't inventory was completely filled, leaving Liam most probably the richest player in all of. Check the space, making sure every nook and corner was emptied out. And when he was finally done, Liam approached the farthest corner of the cave, the lair of the dragon. violet in color, probably broken from a gem of some sort. He carefully placed it in his inventory and then took the third item, which was an old and rusted key. Again, Liam had no idea what this was, even though this was the second time he was playing this game. The people who had looted this gems, recipe scrolls, and skill books are a key. Firstly, he was not sure if someone had managed to loot the entire cave as he did, but even if they did, and on the off chance that these items were extremely valuable, only fools would publicize that information. So either no one got it, or at least the person who got it was not stupid. Well, whatever. Liam ruffled his head and then tossed the key as well into his inventory slot. Without lingering inside longer, he stood up from the dirty cave ground and dusted his clothes before walking back out. All these treasure spots were good and all, but that was not his main purpose in playing the game. In fact, when the inevitable apocalypse descends, these gold coins or even the real-world currency would mean next to nothing. Only true strength and power mattered. As he superficially scrolled through the various items in his inventory, Liam walked out of the cave. His eyes scanned the forest grounds below, where Nerea was still kicking up a storm and roaring loudly. He, however, had no intention of dropping down and joining the fight. To defeat Nerea, a horde of at least 25 players were required, all battling the dragon in perfect sync and coordination. The people in front of him were just recklessly fighting the dragon with their lives on the line. He knew that they were never going to beat the dragon this way, or at least it was going to take a long time to do so. But Liam knew better than to join a losing fight. Unlike others who couldn't care less about a couple of losses or deaths since it was still the beginning of the game, he knew the true cost of death. Chapter 22, New Team. Every time a player, or rather a human being, died inside the game, their soul became a little weaker. Each death chipped a person's soul, bit by bit. This was a fact revealed several weeks into the game when someone eventually died from sheer exhaustion. By then it was too late, and almost the entire population's souls were corrupted in one way or the other. Not a single person possessed a whole and healthy soul. Though Liam had no plans to become a hero or the savior of this world, he was also not cold-hearted enough to keep this particular piece of vital information to himself. I should probably post this later tonight in a forum or something. Liam made a mental note and prepared to leave the mountain, heading to the next place he had in mind. But as he stepped out, he noticed a couple of familiar figures standing in front of the other cave, right next to the dragon's lair. Oh! What a coincidence! We meet again, expert. Ray quickly walked over to him and eagerly sparked up a conversation. Aren't you fighting the dragon, Senior? Liam shook his head before turning to leave. Wait. Wait a minute, Senior. Ray hurriedly shouted and ran over to him, seeing that the man was once again giving them the slip. We just found a dungeon here. Lair of the Ebon Raven. Our party got the discovery bonus and a big experience boost and drop rate bonus. We are still lacking 2 people. Do you want to join us, Senior? Ray explained and reject Ray. Instead, he paused for a moment before nodding his head in acceptance. There was a reason why he did this. Liam had a hunch that there might be some clues in the dungeon. After all, the dungeon was located right next to the cave where he had obtained the 3 mysterious items. If only the normal drops of the dungeon or the experience boost were taken into account, then probably he did not need any of it, but he was not sure if any additional drops would be triggered because he possessed the unique items. So Liam decided to run the dungeon at least once. He had to increase his level irrespectively, and this was not a bad way. Yes. Got it, senior. We won't drag you down, I swear. Ray was ecstatic after seeing Liam nod. All right. That's enough. What's your party composition? Liam patted the excited young man and walked towards the dungeon. Ha ha ha. Ray immediately revealed a big grin. Bro. Just like you, I am also playing no class. He even gave a thumbs up and a wink. This idiot. Liam shook his head, smiling bitterly. Add me to the party. He wanted to check their stats before starting the run. If their condition was too bad, then there was no point in teaming up with them. Instead of carrying dead weights and idiots, it would make his life a lot easier if he simply went in all by himself. Especially considering that this was only a beginner's dungeon. He had already tempered his body, and he was also no longer level 1. He leveled up twice from the fight with the wolves and was currently at level 3. So, for him, even solo clear was not impossible. Ray nodded and quickly added Liam to the team. Ding. You have been invited to join a party. Ding. Do you accept? Yes/no. Liam clicked yes and then silently inspected his 3 new teammates. Though he didn't have many expectations, to begin with, he was pleasantly surprised after seeing their stats. All 3 of them were in fact at level 4, a whole level higher than him or the bunch of players fighting with Nerea beside them. Also, among the 3 only Ray hadn't chosen any particular class. One of the 2 girls had chosen the path of paladin while the other had chosen the role of a healer, more specifically a priestess. While both a paladin and a priest relied on holy power, mana with the light elemental attribute infused within it, a paladin focused more on protection and preventing damage while a priest focused more on the healing aspect. Not bad. Not bad at all for a makeshift team. Liam muttered, without minding that he was actually speaking the words out loud. Ray didn't care, but he looked at his 2 sisters and nervously smiled, before turning back to Liam. Bro, we are not really a makeshift team. We have played other games together. Alright. Are we waiting for someone else or shall we start? Liam ignored his remark and went directly to the point. This time, it was not Ray who responded to him, but one of the 2 women, the paladin. We will be rolling for equipment drops and skill book drops impartially. Got it? Chapter 23, Yin Body. Alex tied up her long red hair into a tight bun as she eyed Liam from top to bottom. Every time her gaze fell on him, it was clear to her that she was in a game. No real man could possibly look like that. Though she herself was quite appealing, with a slender body and soft curves, the person in front of her was in a completely different league. With his looks, he could be a top model in the real world earning 6 figures. But except for his appearance and perhaps that special quest he received, nothing else was really that special about him, not to mention the arrogant attitude he wore all the time as if he was better than everybody else. Alex highly doubted that the person deserved all this attention and the ass-kissing which Ray was shamelessly doing. For all she knew, this guy was probably just a fake wannabe. So, do you agree or not? We will be rolling for equipment drops and skill book drops impartially. She repeated her words again, stressing each of them. Liam chuckled wryly. Why would he care about the drops from a beginner's dungeon? That's fine with me. I don't need any pieces of equipment. We can roll for skill books. But I do have one single condition. If there are any material drops or unique drops, I will be taking it. Alex stared him down, raising her brow at him. Just because he said what he said, she couldn't help but feel that there were going to be unique drops or some special quest items. Was this guy a beta tester? How does he know everything in advance? Nevertheless, she shrugged and agreed. She didn't want to waste too much time talking out here because if they don't clear the dungeon first, it was inevitable that someone else will take their cake. After Alex agreed, the group then quickly walked inside, entering the cave. As soon as they stepped in, it was as if they had been transported to a completely different place. They were now standing in a forest of sorts again, an extremely windy one at that, and the clear blue sky was now an unsettling ominous dark purple in color. What the hell is this dungeon? Ray asked, looking around nervously. There were no beasts or monsters around them and the place was a bit too creepy for a plain empty forest. Not down. Look up. Liam muttered. Ray and the two women heard his words and immediately looked up to see tiny red dots scattered in the dark purple cloudy sky, and when they looked closer, they instantly gasped. The tiny red dots were eyes and the dark purple clouds were flocks of birds swirling around in endless loops. Phew! Ray cursed out loud in shock and the two women also looked apprehensive. Liam, on the other hand, calmly smiled and sat down on the forest ground, opening his inventory screen. Just because the birds were there, it didn't mean that they were going to attack them. Otherwise, they would have done so already. All right. I need 5 more minutes and then I will be good to go. Everyone was too distracted to care about him, so they absent-mindedly nodded. Liam chuckled. The game was indeed a bit too realistic. And there was a reason for that. He sighed and shook his head, finally taking a look at the things he had swiped from the dragon's lair. Currency. Gold, 5,000. Silver, 5,000. Copper, 5,000. Not bad. Liam clicked his tongue. He then took a look at the first skill book. Demonic Summon, consumes 200 mana and summons a lesser demon. Spell active for 20 seconds. Level 1. TCH. What an expensive summoning spell. Liam quickly learned the skill as there was no limit to the number of skills one could learn, but leveling up all of them and making sure that they are actually useful was an entirely different thing. One could learn 100 skills, but it was physically impossible to focus on all of them, level up all of them, and more importantly, gain enlightenment regarding all of them. But this particular skill was well worth the time and effort because Liam knew that when leveled up, it would enable the player to permanently form a contract with a demon. Of course, there was also another prerequisite for this to happen. Only people with an extremely high demonic affinity were capable of achieving this stage. Liam did not have an SSS grade affinity, which was technically the highest, but she still had an S grade affinity, which was good enough. So he didn't hesitate and quickly learned the skill. Alex stood beside him, curiously watching Liam and wondering what he was up to. Hey, Hofstadter. What do you think he is doing? Did he just learn a skill? She muttered under her breath. Liam ignored their chatter and was about to open the next item when his hand suddenly paused. Hofstadter. His eyes quickly scanned the name of the third member of the party, the priestess with whom he had not interacted that much. Ray Thornwood. Alex Thornwood. Mia Hofstadter. He hadn't paid enough attention to their names earlier, and now that he did, Liam was utterly dumbfounded. What was this? Fate? Or simply a coincidence? Liam cursed himself for not noticing this sooner. In his hurry, he would have almost sent away a God-sent gift package. Mia Hofstadter. In his previous life, she was a very famous named player. She had consistently been one of the top healers on the leaderboard. Not to mention, her top-notch skills as a battle priest when she was not healing. In addition to that, the woman was extremely good-looking, with a gorgeous figure, honey blonde hair, and a pair of bright blue eyes. She also had a calm, composed, and cold temperament like a sword that was sheathed, which didn't quite fit the image of a kind and Benevolent priestess, and yet she was adored by countless fans and was revered as a goddess. However, all of this was when the world still had a semblance of normalcy. After things started to turn bleak, for some reason, her name had disappeared altogether. She was not even registered with the association. Liam's mind automatically rummaged through the several things he had heard about Mia, and he paused, paying attention to the one particular thing, the only part he cared about. This woman in front of him possessed a pure yin body. Chapter 24, Dungeon Run. Human beings were not all the same, and some had blessed constitutions even while living on an unawakened planet such as Earth. Liam himself did not have any such special constitutions. In his previous life, he had envied those people who had, because they were able to easily soar up and stand above when everyone else was struggling. The body was the vessel that absorbed, stored, and acted as a conduit for energy and magic. So when one had the upper hand in this aspect, their progress was smooth and steady. In his second time around, Liam had no plans of underestimating such an important factor, especially when the said thing was knocking at his doorstep. "Do you have a divine affinity?" Liam gazed at Mia and asked, directly coming to the point. "SSS grade," he added. The girl in front of him was stunned. Her lips parted slightly and she asked, "What? How do you know that?" Both Alex and Ray were also shocked and looked at him with questioning eyes. Liam smiled. He did not have to wait for their answer. Judging just from their reactions, he could tell that his guess was indeed correct. "Ha. Nothing like that." He chuckled and raised his hands. "I was just wondering why you would select a class like priest. Senior, I told you right. We are a strong team." Ray chuckled. Apparently, only he had bought Liam's answer, as the other two women squinted their eyes and looked at him warily. "All right. I am almost done." Liam did not dwell on the topic any longer, as he knew that convincing the other party right now for the thing that he wanted from her was almost impossible. He picked another one of the skill books, the basic skill for a necromancer class, and quickly learned it. This should be enough for this dungeon. He flicked his inventory close and then stood up, unsheathing one of the swords that he had picked up from Neria's lair. Sizzling iron sword. Weapon type, one-handed sword. Durability, 20/40. Attack damage, 15/20. Agility, 5. Let's go. The first mob should be up ahead. Ignore the ones flying in the sky. They won't come down to attack us," Liam explained. The group walked forward with Liam and Alex at the front and Ray and Mia at the back. Mia couldn't help but glance at the lean and muscular man in front of her. Why did he ask me that? She silently wondered. A few seconds later the first beasts popped up. A group of wandering wolves stood in front of Liam and Alex. Before anyone could say anything, Liam dashed forward and took control of the situation. "Tank, take the two on the left. I will attack the two on the right. Ray, provide support for the tank. Healer, keep an eye out for sudden damages." Alex frowned, wondering who put this guy in charge of their team, but she decided to just go along with the flow and once and for all, really see what the guy was worth. She used her basic paladin skill block and jutted her shield forward. The two wolves immediately growled and attacked her, but their claws and canines were blocked by the shield. She skillfully moved, blocking their every single attack, again and again, even anticipating their attack pattern. However, these were just wolves, so Alex was even able to catch a break and swung her sword forward. Ray supported her by shooting arrows from behind, the two of them quickly finishing off the wolves in under a minute. "Woo!" Alex shouted as the string of experience points flowed in. She was about to turn and see how Liam was doing, but the next couple of experience points also flowed in. "He single-handedly finished the two wolves in the same time it took for the both of us?" She was dumbfounded. She wanted to open the system interface and check the damage numbers as they only received notification for experience points, but Liam's voice bellowed again. "Get the wolf meat and place them atop that giant rock." He muttered and casually picked up the few copper coins that had dropped. Alex's eyes went wide. This shameless guy. But the other two didn't seem to care and quickly did what Liam told. They sliced the bodies of the animal and prepared a heap of fresh meat. As neither of the women wanted to touch the ultra-realistic chopped-up meat and Liam had already walked over to the rock, Ray volunteered and brought the pile of meat sloppily over to the rock. "Now what?" Alex asked, crossing her hands in front of her ample chest. Liam remained silent, but soon distant flaps of wings sounded. "Now it begins." He smiled. "Zem on 1 if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 25, Unexpected Changes. "Do you guys have any potions handy? Keep it ready." Liam barely finished talking when the distant trees shook and the leaves rustled. About 5 black ravens with big red eyes flew towards them like bullets. "Tank. Heads up. You take 2. I will deal with the other 3. Ray. The same rule. Follow it. Provide support to the tank first. Come to me. After dealing with the 2. Healer, look alive." Alex was furious. What the heck was with this fellow? Did they not have names? Only Ray had a name. She activated her skill Deafening Roar and attracted the attention of all 5 ravens, but Liam quickly slashed at 3 of them. His damage numbers were double that of Alex, so he immediately pulled the 3 away from her, giving her a stern look. "Follow my instructions." The birds were a bit more agile than the wolves and their main attack pattern was with their beaks and claws, pecking furiously at their targets. Nevertheless, Liam dodged their attacks nimbly, his tempered body keeping up with his movements. Every single move he made was accounted for and had absolute precision. Beside him, Alex also blocked the birds and parried with them. Soon, the first wave of birds was brought down, again almost at the same time. A string of notifications rang in their ears giving out experience points. Alex immediately turned towards Liam and pointed her shield at him. "Do you have something against women? What? Watch out. There are 3 more waves." Liam warned her and not long after, the trees once again rustled. This time a flock of 10 birds came down and Alex no longer had the luxury to be pissed at Liam. "Deafening Roar," she once again shouted loudly, drawing the attraction of the cluster of black ravens. "Tank, can you handle 5? Liam shouted and slashed at the few birds in the back. Heavy damage numbers floated and feathers scattered left and right, but even Liam was not able to dodge all the peckers. A few bloody gashes appeared on his body. However, just as his health dropped, nourishing energy enveloped his body, quickly healing him. Mia's spell casting was on point as she anticipated the damage and aided the team with great timing. Liam nodded in approval. This woman was indeed worthy of being one of the top battle priests. She was a natural. His own movements as well were extremely fluid and confident, but the difference between the both of them was that he had actually swung his sword a million times before he got to where he was today. It was something that was drilled into his very bones. But the other party was simply born with a godly talent. The world was truly unfair. The ravens did not have any special attacks, so with just using his basic sword moves, Liam was able to deal with them in a matter of seconds. Alex and Ray, on the other hand, were still barely holding on. Alex grit her teeth in frustration as the experience points pooled from Liam's kills. Unlike the earlier mob, this one showed the skill difference between the two, leaving nothing to the imagination. While they were struggling, Liam was already done and he now dashed forward to help with their half of the mob. He would have gotten to them faster, but he did not want to use any of his new skills just yet. Ding 10, experience points gained. Ding 10, bonus experience points gained. One of the ravens dropped a skill book this time, which Liam bent down and picked up. What is it, bro? Ray asked excitedly, but to his disappointment, it was only a holy heal spell book. You have this skill? Liam asked Mia and she nodded silently. He then turned and tossed the book to Alex. You should also learn it. Why would a paladin need a heal skill? Alex frowned. She was still sulking about the fact that he was much stronger and skilled than them. Your choice. Liam did not engage her and wiped the blood off of his sword, preparing for the next attack which was about to hit them. Any time now. He took out a violet-colored fruit from his inventory and munched on it. Another wave incoming. Recover your mana and stamina quickly. Alex gripped her shield tightly, wanting to bash it on the back of his head. What a hateful guy. 10 again this time, Liam shouted as the trees began to rustle and another group of ravens flew towards them. 5 each. Same as last time. He swung his sword, prepared to jump into the battle, but suddenly, he froze. Liam almost couldn't believe what he was seeing. Something that he did not expect to happen. Instead of the norm, the 10 birds mob, a mob of 20 black ravens shot towards them like sharp arrows. Liam's eyes widened in realization. He knew that this had something to do with the special objects he had collected from the dragon's lair. He snapped out of his shock and immediately shouted again. More than 10. Watch out. Yes, I can see that, genius. Alex angrily retorted, but the man was too busy to listen to her. Awaken, Liam muttered under his breath, finally using another one of his skills. Black mist swirled around the many raven corpses littered on the mound, broken pieces of their skeletons slowly coming together. They bonded and fused like there was some sort of invisible glue. Some even had pieces of flesh and feathers stuck to it, making it extremely gory and disgusting to watch. Not to mention the pungent smell. What the hell? Alex took a step back, feeling nauseous. Even Mia's face was scrunched up. Only Ray watched the whole thing with a dazed look on his face that was full of admiration and worship. Bro. How cool. You got the undead skill. Nice. This looks freaking amazing. He gave Liam a thumbs up. Everything happened quickly, and from the mess of the several corpses, 3 raven skeletons rose up from the ground, flapping their rotten bonny wings. Chapter 26, God of Death. Squawk. 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 The cluster of ravens cackled, filling the air with loud shrieking noises. It was barely on the borderline, and even a decibel or so higher would have forced the team fighting against them to cover their ears first, instead of fighting to prevent their eardrums from getting punctured. Alex immediately used her deafening roar, coupled with her block, but the birds were far too many and their beaks were everywhere. The group's health was dropping down too fast for even Mia to keep a steady hold on things. She frantically cast her heels, forcing herself to her limits to maintain absolute perfection in timing. Liam sighed. He took one look at how things were going and he immediately shouted, "Get down." They were only a little over halfway through and he didn't want the group to be wiped out. And since everyone had been listening to him since the beginning, no one thought twice about what he said and acted first, getting off of the mound. Only after jumping down, they noticed that none of the ravens had followed them back and all the birds were now circling only around Liam. Healer. Keep up. Liam shouted, adding another instruction. He didn't bother giving Mia more detailed commands because he was confident about her abilities. Also, he didn't have the time to spare. Standing all by himself atop of the bloody mound, Liam's body was spinning and twisting in all crazy angles, his agility a notch higher than the ravens. The three undead he had summoned were also busily fighting back, taking chunks of flesh and health from the cackling ravens, but it was clear that he was being pushed to his limits. It was clear that he wouldn't last much longer, but lasting so far just by himself was itself a remarkable feat. Everyone was stunned silly. They watched Liam in a daze with dumb expressions on their faces, even forgetting that they could just climb back the mound and join the fight. They couldn't take their eyes off of him as he contorted in various angles, dodging the trajectories of the birds and at the same time slashing at them with his sword. How beautiful! Alex muttered subconsciously. Mia as well had her eyes peeled open, not missing a single movement on the man in front of her. Ray, on the other hand, was watching on as if he was seeing a ghost. With every second that passed, his movements became sharper and sharper and his random moves slowly became coordinated and beautiful, like a dance rather than an intense battle. All three gulped, watching him in awe. Sword slices rippled out in several directions, chunks of flesh and feathers flying everywhere. And before long, the entire flock of birds suddenly dropped down dead. Experience points rained down continuously, as the entire flock of birds was just like that, taken care of by a single player. Ding! A new skill, Sword Dance, has been created due to your actions. Sword Dance: each slash of the sword deals 200% damage, a critical hit attack deals 250% damage, cooldown, 3 minutes. Liam smiled at the new skill, feeling exhilarated after having executed the familiar set of moves perfectly. He didn't want to use this so soon, as revealing it might bring a lot of questions, but he didn't have any other options. So he just went for it. Awaken, Liam muttered again, this time a group of 5 bony undead ravens slowly rising up from the pile of corpses. He was already preparing for the next fight. Unlike him, all the 3 spectators stood still. Even Alex was stunned speechless with nothing else to say. She inwardly felt embarrassed to have compared both of their gameplay. One was like an aged wine while the other was like a cheap beer. Liam turned to look at them and saw the worshipping look in their eyes. Het! He chuckled inwardly. He was not used to being looked at in this manner. He ruffled his head and muttered, returning back to dig through the pile of corpses. You should stop daydreaming and get back up. The next group will soon be here. The haul this time was quite good and the birds had dropped 2 skill books and 1 crossbow with good stats. Check this out. Liam threw the crossbow at Ray. Hey! How do you know all of this? Alex asked, ignoring the equipment that was tossed. She climbed back onto the mound, with her gaze fixated on Liam. I don't. I am only roughly guessing. He didn't stop for answering her and continued to pocket all the copper and silver coins he found. Technically, what he said wasn't wrong, as his last estimate had been terribly wrong and way off the mark. Even they knew it. But Alex was not ready to give up just yet. What was that sword move thing you did? That was also a skill you learned from a skill book? She asked again. It was impossible for one person to have acquired so many skill books when the game just literally started, so she simply couldn't let it go. She glared at the guy as if he had stolen her lunch money from her. Liam shook his head and looked at her. This time, instead of giving her a random bullshit answer, he paused slightly. I will explain it later. To you. The next mob should be coming soon. He turned around without leaving any space for the woman to ask him further questions. You. Alex clenched her fists and glared at him. 5 undead ravens flapped their wings and circled around Liam. This, coupled with the strong and powerful aura he was emitting, the man looked like a god of death. Alex gulped and pursed her lips. She angrily kicked a couple of corpses next to her feet as if checking to search for other drops. Ray was busy looking at the crossbow in his hand and Mia looked around, also checking in between the corpses for drops. But just like Alex, her gaze as well ever so often flickered over in the direction of Liam, looking at him in a daze. Chapter 27, Secret Mode. Liam pensively stared at the distance as the next set of flapping sounds started to echo. This as well sounded louder than what he was expecting. Were there again more birds? Ebon Raven was a simple beginner's dungeon. It should have never been this difficult. It didn't even have the usual modes, like easy, difficult, and hell mode. It was just a single straight shot run without any hidden twists and turns. Originally, the dungeon should have had 10 birds in the previous mob and 10 more birds in the next mob, with some of the birds in this group having the ability to stun players. This was also the last mob before the final boss, a monstrous raven bird. The boss monster looked like the other ravens except that it was several times bigger and had a third eye. The bird also had exceptional agility and was very skillful at stunning players, keeping everyone on their toes. This was in short the summary of the beginner's dungeon. But Liam had a nagging feeling that this was not how things were going to proceed. Was it because of the items he had taken from the dragon's lair? It also could be because they were the first team to enter and run the dungeon. He didn't know for sure, but that was his best guess as of now. Either way, there was a high possibility that he might not get this opportunity again. Liam did not want to risk taking any chances, so he decided to cast the other skill he had learned as well. He closed his eyes and muttered demonic summon. His mana instantly bottomed out and thick black fumes started materializing in front of him. These were somewhat similar to the aura exerted by the 5 undead ravens flapping their rotten wings, but at the same time, there were also differences between the two. Both Alex and Mia could feel their skin tingle from such thick demonic and nether energy swirling near them. What the hell? You have one more skill. Alex cried out in exasperation, and the other two as well couldn't remain silent. You have a lot of skills. Mia calmly muttered, though her eyes betrayed her puzzlement. Bro, is there some shop where we can buy skills? Ray chuckled awkwardly. He didn't want to intrude and make Liam feel uncomfortable, but this was too much and he couldn't refrain from asking. While the three looked at him with bulged eyes, Liam's complete attention and focus were on the black blob swirling in front of him. It typically took a couple of seconds for the demon to be fully summoned, so he watched it like a hawk. Just as the last mob of birds started flying towards them, a small red ball slowly revealed itself and suddenly 2 holes materialized on it. One turning into an evil-looking eye and the other turning into a row of teeth. Gah! It made a weird sound, snapping Liam into action. An unevolved beholder. Not bad. He grinned. These aberrations were one of the powerful lesser demons and were capable of dealing several types of damage depending on their type. It can be as powerful as a one-shot death ray shooting out from the single devious eyeball to a harmless slowing ray. Liam would only know its capabilities once it started attacking. And it was about time. More than 30 birds were shooting towards them like black arrows with red eyes. Healer. Watch out for the stuns. If you keep moving around, it will be difficult for the birds to stun you. Liam muttered and clutched the sword in his hands tightly. The beholder demon and the undead ravens zoomed here and there in anticipation as if their only thought was to fight and kill, and when the group of ravens descended, they instantly jumped into action. Each undead managed to grab the attention of at least 2 ravens, and the beholder demon single-handedly grabbed the attention of 5 ravens. This in itself covered half of the mob and the rest became a lot easier for the team to handle. Alex skillfully bashed her shield against the birds, while Ray now waved a dagger at the birds. Liam couldn't activate his sword dance just yet, so he slashed at the weak points of the birds with precision. Mia was the busiest out of all of them, as all 3 were close combat fighters and were taking quite a lot of damage. But thankfully, because of Liam's warning, At least no one got stunned and managed to pull through. The first bird dropped dead within seconds, boosting everyone's morale. The demon paralyzed a bird, shooting out a black ray from its eyeball, which then dropped down lifelessly after getting caught in the volley of sword slashes Liam was sending out. Following this, one by one, more birds started dropping dead, the group's coordination being much better this time around. Both Alex and Ray even leveled up, giving them instant health refills that additionally made the fight a lot easier. Before long, the big flock of birds was completely demolished and corpses piled up on the mound. Chapter 28, Eye of the Tornado. Huff. 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 Alex and Ray couldn't handle it anymore and sat down on the bloody mound to catch a breather. This last mob had taken everything out of them and they felt like their body had been squeezed dry. No matter how realistic games were, they had never experienced something like this before. It was as if they had physically battled just now, instead of just a mere projection of their mind. Brother. Aioo, please tell me that was the last mob. Ray panted and pieces of fruit sprayed from his mouth as he munched while talking. That should be the last mob. Liam absent-mindedly muttered, but his tone implied that he wasn't satisfied with his answer. Next should be a monstrous raven with the ability to cast a lot of stun skills. It likes to paralyze the healer and kill them first. So, Mia, you should watch out. Liam tried his best to explain while at the same time drinking a potion to restore his mana. All the ravens he had resurrected for the last bout were already useless, so he once more had to cast the undead spell Awaken. This time a total of 10 ravel ghouls flapped their wings and arose from the cluster of bones and flesh that laid around like garbage. Why's the boss taking so long? Ray asked, looking up at the sky. His action made Liam subconsciously look up as well, and suddenly his eyes widened. Get down, now. You have to get down immediately and leave the dungeon, he shouted. Everyone glanced at each other wondering what was going on and looked up as well, their eyes trailing Liam's to check out what could possibly be so damn terrifying. At first, they couldn't see anything, but slowly things became clearer as the small movements became bigger and bigger. The insane number of birds swirling in the sky were unexpectedly showing some sort of activity. Liam had at first assured them that these birds wouldn't be moving or attacking, but now that didn't seem to be the case. The rest of the sky slowly started to clear up and the sky above the mound alone was becoming darker and darker. The others did not know what was happening, but Liam could most definitely guess. Move. Now. He once again shouted. No one had to tell them thrice. Alex, Ray, and Mia scrambled on their feet and jumped out of the mound in a hurry. But to their surprise, Liam was still standing at the mound, not showing any intention of jumping down and following them. And before anyone could even think about what he was doing, the ravens formed a tornado and started descending. The hundreds of ravens flying high in the sky started descending one by one. Alex stumbled and fell back, staring up at the sky dumbfoundedly. Ray had shock and fear etched all over his face. Mia also stood with her mouth wide open. Get down. Get down now. She stuttered, looking at the man who still stood without budging. You. Why are you so stubborn? Alex was speechless. Brother. It's not worth it. Jump down from the mound. Let's come back with a full party and make other preparations. Ray gritted his teeth. In all honesty, he had no idea just what preparations he could do against such a monstrous phenomenon, but all he wanted was for them to get out safe and sound. Death itself was not a big deal. At most, they would lose a level or so, but being pecked to death when the game was so realistic was something no one should suffer through. Liam, however, hadn't even heard any of Ray's words. He simply shouted again. Leave, now. He only warned them these many times because it was after all because of him that they were also facing this dungeon anomaly. They might not know it yet, but he knew the cost of single death and he didn't want to be responsible for theirs. At the same time, he also didn't want to move. It was now more than clear to him that everything that was happening was quest-related. If he left the dungeon now, quitting the run halfway, he might never get another shot at this hidden quest and this unexpected turn of events. Normally, missing a single opportunity perhaps wouldn't matter that much. But Liam was not ready to lose even a single opportunity this time around. Otherwise, what was the point of his miracle, his second chance? If he failed this time, he wouldn't have anyone else to blame. He needed to make this count. Otherwise, the repercussions. He would rather die than live the life that was waiting for him. No, I cannot give up now, I have to fight. I have to do it right here and right now. I cannot lose everything again, I will not. I cannot falter with just this much. I have to fight through this, no matter the cost. He turned around to look at the three and shouted at them one last time. Did you not hear me? Get the fuck out now. Mia, Alex, and Ray heard his thunderous roar, and for some reason, they couldn't ignore his command. The pressure and the ominous aura coming out from the deadly swirl of ravens in the sky were also putting them under a lot of stress. They couldn't stand still frozen any longer and snapped out of their trance. They ran out of the dungeon at full speed and did exactly what Liam asked them to. Ding. Alex Thornwood has left the dungeon. Ding. Alex Thornwood has left the party. Ding. Mia Hofstadter has left the dungeon. Ding. Mia Hofstadter has left the party. Ding. Ray Thornwood has left the dungeon. Ding. Ray Thornwood has left the party. Continuous notifications rang as the others exited the dungeon, and the party as well was automatically disbanded because they quit a dungeon abruptly. Liam was the only one remaining now. He looked up to see the tornado of ravens swirling in the sky above him, and the birds finally began their descent. Chapter 29, Sometimes a Hero Runs. Fuck. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Liam had sent everyone else out, but now he had no idea what to do in this situation. It was not as if he was a cheat character reborn with maxed out stats. No, he was just a cheat character reborn with normal stats. So he was no closer to dealing with this insane fucking scenario than he was 2 seconds ago, and he didn't have very much time left. He would inevitably be pecked to death in about another 5 seconds. He gritted his teeth and watched as the black ominous ravens with crimson red eyes started descending from the sky one after the other. The massive swirling tornado was going to swallow him whole. Liam looked around here and there and realized that there was only one thing he could do right now. Damn it. I have no other choice. Let me just run for now and then figure out a solution later. He waited for the ravens to get close enough to him, and then before the first bird could touch him, he moved. His feet touched the ground lightly, and the next second, he shot out of the mound with an explosive speed. Squawk. 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 The ravens screeched with murderous intent and then unexpectedly began following him. I knew it. Liam grinned. It was impossible for anyone to defeat these many ravens while standing atop the singular mound with nowhere to hide. So he had a feeling that no matter where he was in the entire dungeon, he would still hold the attention of the mob and not lose them. Of course, this was a big risk, because if he had been wrong, he would have lost everything, including this special scenario and the bonus things that were popping out of the dungeon. But still, it was better to take this risk and lose rather than to simply die or exit the dungeon. Liam maintained his steady breathing and ran down from the mound as fast as he could. He wasn't really running in any particular direction. He was just randomly running from one end of the forest to the other. The sight of a lone man being chased by an entire swarm of ravens was simply too comical and irrational, and yet he did just that. Okay. Think. I should only have about 3 minutes. How can I deal with this? Liam racked his brain. Damn it, there isn't enough time to think. If anyone else had heard him say this, they would have surely coughed up blood, as the speed with which he was running right now was at least 5 times what his level players were capable of. And to do this, Liam also wasn't using any special skills. There were myriad mysterious movement skills available, and he even knew one of the bad ones and the location of some of the good ones, but he wasn't capable of executing any of those at his current level. All he could do now was simply run as fast as he could, and of course, Liam added in a little bit of extra to that. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to successfully outrun the ravens while expending as little energy as possible. He circulated the mana flowing freely through his body, and then taking a deep breath he pushed all of it to his feet. Bang! Dust and wind swirled at the places where his feet touched, and he sprang forth, running around the nook and cranny of the forest. Damn it! Liam cursed. There wasn't a single thing in the wide open forest that could possibly help him. There were only trees scattered around here and there. No, it cannot be. There should be a way. He gritted his teeth and continued running, taking the flock of ravens along with him, zigging and zagging behind him. The bunch of them had almost covered the entirety of the dungeon's forest when Liam suddenly stopped, a few birds catching up to him. However, he ignored their attacks, now ran perpendicularly towards 2 big trees. There was nothing special about these 2 trees except that they were thick, sturdy, and tall, and the lower half of the trees were covered in thick brambles. Liam grinned, and then the next second, he directly sprinted towards this pair of trees, jumping right in between them. "Come at me now!" he shouted, adrenaline coursing through his body. The raven birds were only an issue when they could all attack him at the same time, but now, they would at most be able to come at him 4 or 5 at a time. And that was a number he had no problem managing. Liam grinned wildly with a devilish madness on his face and swung his sword casually to his left and his right. Slash! 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 Blood spurted everywhere. Chunks of flesh and feathers scattered all around, and finally, the black ravens started dropping dead one after the other. Chapter 30, I have been waiting for you. Having finally slowed down the insane gang of birds chasing after him, Liam felt exhilarated and his blood was pumping. Even so, he did not rush. He took his time and slowly dealt with the mob of birds, 1 or 2 at a time. While he was doing this, he replenished his mana and stamina supplies, which were almost depleted. Moreover, because the birds were restricted by the giant trees, they could do nothing as well and were relegated to attacking at the speed that he permitted. Some of the birds even tried to come at him from the top, but the branches of the trees were too numerous with dense clusters of leaves covering them. They couldn't simply scoop down and peck at him. In the end, leaves and twigs were still leaves and twigs, the setup was never going to last. He only had barely enough time to get a grip on the situation. Liam improved his slow and rhythmic speed bit by bit, and his sword danced faster and faster after every single move. Without the advantage of their numbers, the black ravens were completely overpowered and slaughtered mercilessly. At the same time, as each bird died, the experience points that were pouring down on him were also quite significant. Now that he was the one and only member of the party, it was no different than him solo clearing the dungeon. He single-handedly reaped all the benefits, along with the first discovery bonus boosts and effects. Ding 30 experience points gained. Ding 30 bonus experience points gained. As the experience points continued adding up non-stop, the giant tornado which had now formed atop the 2 huge trees was hacked by Liam bit by bit. It only took him a few minutes to reduce the unending tide of birds to a few dozen. His entire body was drenched in sweat and his muscles were pulsing with exhaustion. However, he kept going, pushing his limits to the fullest. Luckily, he used the sword that he had picked up from Neria's lair. Otherwise, his weapon would have shattered by now. His current one wasn't doing that great either. The durability was slowly dropping to single digits and the trees were also now almost destroyed. By the time Liam got to the end of the flock, ripping into shreds the last few birds, his sword covered in blood cracked into two, and coincidentally, the giant trees he was lodged in between also cracked and split apart. Ah! Liam clenched his fist and let out a loud howl,